Hello and welcome back to my shop. Buying your first vintage Stanley hand plane can seem like an intimidating task, and it's completely understandable why. There is a mountain of information that exists about these, and it's only the bigger because of the collector's market that exists around old Stanley hand planes. The purpose of this video is to distill that all down, give you a simple checklist to make your first Stanley buying experience a successful one. So let's get to it. In this video, I am not going to explain how to refurbish or restore a Stanley plane or how to sharpen a blade. There are plenty of other videos online that do that, do a much better job of it than I can. I'll leave cards, I think, up above, definitely links down below. Before we get into the checklist proper, I want to go over a couple of things really quickly. First of all, why a vintage Stanley instead of something new? Second of all, where can you get them? Third, I'm going to disassemble a hand plane, just name all the parts so we have a common vocabulary. And I'd like to let you know that this information is mostly about the US market because that's where I happen to live. I think much of it will apply to like a Canadian market or a British market where Stanley hand planes are readily available. If you live in an area where these aren't readily available, then this isn't going to be a whole lot of help for you. So first of all, why a vintage Stanley instead of something new? If you are on a budget, don't touch any of the cheap discount planes under $50 that are online. I've refurbished some of them. You can get them working. It will take at least as much work as getting one of these back into fighting condition will. And if you do it with an old Stanley, you're going to have a much better tool going forward. Seriously, if it's under 50 bucks, even if it's under 100 bucks, don't waste your money online. Get a Stanley. Even if you can afford something nice, even if you've got several $100s to toss on a new Veritas, I think getting a used Stanley and refurbishing it is still a good exercise to go through. You will learn so much about hand planes, how they work, what all the parts do, how to troubleshoot problems. You'll just have a much better knowledge about hand planes when you get done with it. So I definitely would recommend that. Where to buy them? Facebook Marketplace, eBay are both good places, possibly Craigslist if that's available in your area. I think Rex Kruger also has recently launched a store for buying and selling used tools. So that's all available. If they're available in your area, yard sales and flea markets are where you're going to get the best deal on vintage Stanley hand planes. You do have to have a little bit more information for those. You have to be able to identify the type. Later in this video, I'm going to link you to a website that'll walk you right through it. So you don't have to worry about learning all of that. So let's get going. I'm going to do the little teardown here, and then we'll get right to the checklist. One more thing in the introduction here that I almost forgot, sharpening. There are a lot of sharpening systems out there. I highly recommend getting a set of these diamond stones for your first time out. They're easy to use, they're low maintenance, they're relatively inexpensive. You can get them for like less than 20 bucks. You are going to have to be able to sharpen your hand plane. I mean, if you use chisels, you're going to be able to sharpen your chisels too. So you're going to need something to sharpen with. Get these to start. They're really easy to use. They don't require any real maintenance. After you learn how to use these, if you want to move on to oil stones or whetstones or several $100 power tool to sharpen your blades, that's fine. This, I think, is the best place for a beginner to start. All right, let's go over the parts of a hand plane. You'll have to bear with me for hand holding the camera. I can't find my stand right now. So on top, we have the lever cap. This secures the iron and chip breaker in place. Some lever caps also have an adjustment knob instead of the lever to secure them. Underneath that, we have the iron and the chip breaker. The iron is really just the name for the blade. They are held together with a little set screw like this. The iron goes on the bottom. The chip breaker goes above the iron. Underneath those, this is called the frog. This is what holds the, this is what beds the iron in the chip breaker. Up here we have the lateral adjustment lever. That obviously moves the blade from side to side to help keep it square. The front knob is called a knob. Around the back, we have an adjustment screw. This changes your depth of cut. Here, this back handle is called the tote, and all of that is attached to the body. The sides of the body is the cheek, bottom of the body is the sole, and the part where the blade sticks out is the mouth. Quick note on the soles. Some soles have a corrugated or grooved underside like this. Some are smooth. It really does not matter which one you get. I have both, obviously. They both work just fine. This just comes down to personal preference. This is something you may decide later on your own, which one you prefer. And also, the inside of the bed has this black lining on it here. That's called japanning. That's basically a baked-on enamel that serves essentially as a rust preventative. If that's chipped off, I mentioned this later. If that's chipped off on your old plane, don't worry about it. If you want to restore it like a collector, you can get it re-japanned. If not, you can just spray some enamel in there to help with the rust prevention. So that is all the parts. We've got the lever cap, the chip breaker, the iron, the knob, the body, the frog, the adjustment lever, lateral adjustment lever, the adjustment screw, and the tote. And let's get on to the checklist now. And there's the checklist. If you follow this checklist, your first hand plane buying experience should be a good one. So let's go over everything really briefly, and I can explain it to you so you'll understand it a little bit better. First of all, what should you buy? A number 4 or a number 5? The plane number simply refers to the size. The lower the number, number 4 is smaller. The bigger the number 5 is bigger. It goes all the way from 1 up to 8. These two are the most common hand planes. They'll do everything you need to do when you're first starting out with a hand plane. In fact, a number 5 is called a jack plane because it's a jack of all trades, as they say. What type should you buy? Type is a system that the hand tool community has come up with to categorize when the hand planes were made. The best one for you to look for is a type 18 or 19. These were produced from around the mid-1940s through the 1950s. This will get you the best balance of quality of tool production with the most refined features and the most advanced features. Anything from the 1960s on, the community has generally said that the quality of the planes, the quality of the manufacture of the planes declines after that. You can buy things earlier than a type 18 if that's what you have available. That's fine. This one is a type 11. They work great. The quality of the older ones is fantastic still. But you want to avoid anything after type 19, so that's anything after the 1960s. And also, don't buy anything with the Handyman logo on it. Handyman was a discount brand for Stanley. There are several others, but those are the ones that are the most clearly marked. So you want to avoid those because the quality wasn't as good. How much should you pay? $20 to $50. I know that seems like a huge range, but you can find these for a huge range in price. Normally around the $30 to $35 range is certainly something you can do. They seem to be trending a little bit higher these days. This is the tail end of 2024. But again, if you can hit up yard sales and flea markets, you'll get better prices. All right, now the important part, checking the condition of the hand plane. First of all, rust. A little bit of surface rust is just fine. That can be wire brushed away, or there are various rust stripping agents out there that'll work just fine. If the rust has eaten into the metal, if it's pitted, don't buy it. Might be possible to salvage something like that, but you don't want to wrestle with that drag on your first time out. The body, if it's cracked, don't get it. Even if it's been brazed or welded back together, don't get it. It's basically not going to be salvageable. If there is a chip out of the cheek, and you can see on this one, I got a big chip taken out here, which I didn't see when I first got that. That's not a deal breaker. These are made generally of cast iron. So if something chips out, it doesn't mean that the base is necessarily going to be warped. So use a little judgment on that, but that's not a deal breaker. You should be able to get it for a lower price, though, if it's got that kind of damage on it. The mouth, right here, you want to make sure the front of the mouth is in good condition. That's the most important part. That's what presses the wood down so the blade can take a proper cut with it right there. If there's any chips or cracks around anywhere on the mouth, don't get it. Pass on it. Again, maybe it's salvageable. You don't want to wrestle that dragon. The tote. Damage on the tote is not a deal breaker. Cracks and breaks can be repaired. Often the horn will be broken off here. That's very common. Won't stop the tool from working, and fairly inexpensive replacements are available. Or, as I did with this one, you can make your own replacement, and you can actually make it to fit your hand. The iron and the chip breaker. You want to look for cracks or chips, dings in the front of the iron, cracks or chips in the chip breaker itself. Again, this is not a deal breaker. Relatively inexpensive, high quality replacements are available. So even if you have iron that's not salvageable, you can buy another one. Now, if you do have one with an iron or a tote that's in really bad condition, you should be able to get a little bit of a lesser price for that. Argue it down if that's an option available where you're buying it, because replacements, good quality replacements for like around $40 are available for these. Japanning, as I mentioned, this is the black coat on the inside, basically a baked on enamel. If it's missing, chipped off, or anything like that, it's mostly aesthetic. You can repair it with some spray-on enamel spray paint if you want, just so it's functionally the same. It helps with a little bit of rust prevention on the inside of the body. But it's not necessary to be in perfect condition unless you're looking to be a collector, which this video is not for collectors. This is for somebody who wants to buy their first hand plane and start using it.